Hey, CJ here. I just want to tell you about a hot rod project we're working on. It involves 11 hot rod legends all on the same stage, talking about how it all began. And we did this with the help of Dana Newquist. Now, you may remember Dana with Platypus. He's been on the show before. We don't know when this project's going to be completed, but we're working on it a little bit at a time and just wanted to give you a little teaser. So stay tuned for that. Welcome to West of Tulsa. I'm CJ Ward. Now, normally I would say we're broadcasting from Ventura, California, but we're not. We're right up the 101 freeway. We're in Santa Barbara, California, and we're broadcasting from the Fleischman Auditorium at the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History. We have a great reason for that. Beth Farnsworth is here, my beautiful wife.
Hello, everybody.
There. We got Dana Newquist is joining us. He's been a guest on the podcast and the YouTube channel before. So thank you for coming by. Plus, he's the reason we're here today. I'll explain in a sec.
Pleasure.
And we got Helm, Seacat.
How you guys doing?
Yeah. Okay, so why are we here? Dana, I'll let you take it away. This is a big night for everybody.
We're here. This is probably almost a year in planning to do this, and it's gathering a number of racers in different genres of racing. We're going to cover vintage racing, vaudeville racing. We're going to talk about motorcycle racing and all this racing that we're going to be talking about. Our panelists they're all racers, and they kind of cross over from one type of race to another. So you're going to hear a lot of variety coming from these different panelists. And the history that you're going to hear goes back to the 20s, actually, and it follows through. And our oldest panelist is Lee Hammock. And Lee is very interesting in that he's going to give you an account of racing at Thunder Bowl. And Thunder Bowl it was a track down in Carpinteria just off 150. Santa Barbara was the first in many, many things like NHRA. What really put Santa Barbara on the map was the airport races.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Everybody who was a racer in the world when that first started came to Santa Barbara. So some of the names you'll find on the scripts are just amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's where a lot of those guys started, right?
Yeah,
we've got the big time.
I've got a friend, Greg Young, who has all the programs from the airport racing.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Imagine the names in there.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
And did it start off as hot rodding? Was that the initial most historic genre of all of this? I guess I want a crash course, a 101 crash course in hot rodding. Is that the umbrella, and then what falls under it?
Yes and no, because let's just go back to just post-World War II. You got a lot of guys coming home, and they don't really have a lot of money, but they want something to do. Now, the cheapest thing you could buy and the most plentiful would be the Model T. Model T was never powerful. It never had any kind of agility on the road. And it was really known to be kind of an off-road car because there weren't any roads when they came out. So the guys started figuring out, how do I hop these things up, the engines? And how do I make them more roadable? So they started working on suspensions and other aspects. So that's when, and then a very famous local guy, Sam Foose, kind of entered the picture. And this is in the late 40s. And Sam was customizing all kinds of cars. And so he would take a stock Ford or Chevy or whatever, and he would customize it so the looks would be different. And from that, they also supplanted different engines in them to make them go faster. And so that's kind of the advent of hot rodding.
Yeah, I think part of it, too, is that when they came back from the war, these guys mechanically knew how to work on tanks and jeeps and airplanes and bombers, and all of a sudden they now could wrench like anybody.
Engineering backgrounds, yeah.
They thought, okay, let's go fast.
One thing few people know is the government, at the start of World War II, gave GM the project to develop an automatic transmission. Now that was really key because what they did is they put those in the Sherman tanks. Okay, so that's what started your automatic transmission. And, you know, with that, a lot of things started to change, especially right after the war.
I remember my grandfather, whenever he referred to hot rodders, he said there were two types, one for go, one for show. And I kind of understood to an extent. Is that true?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Even to this day.
Well, yeah.
You'll hear cars go by today, and you go, okay, that sounds mean. It's not mean. But then when you can feel the rumble in your chest, okay, that's the real deal right there. Yeah.
Well, a real true hot rodder back, let's say in the 50s and early 60s, didn't care about a paint job.
Okay.
Yeah. All they cared about, it has to go fast.
That was the go. Okay.
Yep.
So what era would it be where they fuse both the show and go status, where it had to look good, pristine paint, as well as performance?
Well, there are two different factions there. You know, there were just the hot rodders, okay, the go guys, and then they're the show guys, and they had to have both. So kind of one group didn't like the other group,
Okay.
And so it was a competitive thing.
I would also think, too, that maybe once racing, as we're going to hear tonight, progressed into a more organized sport, I think the show part of it, along with the go part of it, had to go together. You had to look good on the track, and you also had to win. And that might have played, whether it's NASCAR, NHRA, whatever.
Yeah, true.
I would
totally
think that'd be part of it, too.
Yeah.
And then you're talking speeds that just don't sound humanly possible to survive them. Talk more about that.
You're probably talking about Bonneville, right?
Yes.
Those kinds of
And who was driving it, who was doing the racing in Carpinteria, Santa Barbara, Bonneville?
Yeah.
How did it all come together?
Well, here, we can get into the Hammond family. And Seth, he was a machinist, really. And a very bright guy. And he wanted to build a streamliner. And he did. Okay, and that streamliner, and he had different power plants in that streamliner. And he had to figure out aerodynamics, he had to figure out steering, he had to figure out all kinds of lift. And so when you're going even 200 miles an hour, there's just lots of variables that can happen that can make for a disaster. And he may even talk about a disaster that hit him when he was going over 300 miles in his Lakester. So, when you crest 300 miles an hour, the variables get even more extreme. And it just goes up with, the scale.
It's, for somebody who doesn't know hot rodding really well, it's surprising that people can even go that fast. And you say there are people who've gone even faster. And I asked you, what were they wearing?
Diapers?
Yeah, cross. Yeah.
And with all these different racers, I mean, how many cars are still out there that are running or for show or for people to kind of see them, fully built or on the track still?
Well, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get some representatives of cars here.
Oh, okay.
And they're going to be out front. You're going to find a 1932 Studebaker Indy 500 car, which is very cool.
One of, five?
Yeah.
Ever built.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and also you're going to see Seth Hammond's, he's got a dirt racer. It's going to be here. And then, of course, you got the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yeah.
So,
Which has a great story, and it's yours.
yeah.
Great story behind that. And that's a period, or 20s race car. Or at least the motor is it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the Junior 8, which came in that car when it was built in 1926, the reason that engine was so popular is it's a Miller engine, and that engine in 3 different vehicles won the Indy 500.
Wow.
So it's got a nice reputation to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, tonight's all about history.
It is.
It's all about history, the people who lived it. One of the, when we go to car shows and people always walk up and go, we have to tell these stories.
We have to.
They're going to disappear soon. We have to get all these guys together. And thanks for your motivation and drive, we've been able to pull this thing off. It's going to be really a fun night.
Well, I've been thinking about this for a long time and how to do it. Now, the union of getting West of Tulsa involved made it work. Because, I had the connections of the people, but how I was going to do it, goes to a much bigger level.
Yeah. And for folks who are watching this, we're going to have a finished version of tonight so everybody can see it.
Yeah.
So my understanding is what we're talking about right now is a preview to tonight's panel session, correct? Yeah. So I'm wondering, can you delve a little bit deeper into what it really is like to race at Bonneville? Have you ever done it personally?
No. I'd love to watch it, but I wouldn't race it.
You wouldn't do it?
No.
Because the speeds are 300 or more?
Well, no. I mean, they have many, many different classes. And some of the classes go back into the teens and 20s and 30s. So some of these cars, if they crest 100, that's a big deal. But, when you get into the more sophisticated stuff, the Lakesters and other, then you're getting into the 2 and 3 and 400, because each level it has its own club. If you're in the 200-mile club, you're a big deal. But if you're in the 300-mile club, you're a really big deal. And what I'm guessing, you may see both Seth and Tanis wear their 300-mile hats.
Oh.
Well, and not just that, I'm going to expand on that a little bit because the Hammond family.
They've all gone over 300.
They've all gone over 300. And there are 4 of them, right?
Yeah.
4 have the whole family. I mean, when you think of a family vacation, you don't think about breaking 300 miles an hour, the whole family. But they do it. They go out to Bonneville and
they do.
They charge.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the mechanics behind building something like that. And when somebody first hit that kind of speed and they knew they were able to do that, does that make sense? Who?
You know what? I don't have the bandwidth to answer that. So I wish I could tell you what it takes. But, I mean, the difficulty in going that fast is so extreme because everything has to play together.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It goes into nature also. What is the wind speed? Where is it coming from? What's the track like? Are there any bumps in the track and so forth? So if you even get a slight rise in the track, that can put you airborne at 300.
Sure.
So there's so many variables.
And it takes a special person. Helm, you and I have talked a lot about the types of people who drive certain types of cars, get the experiences from them. If you had to give a profile to the type of person who would be that daring, that courageous to do this, how would you describe that person?
On a lot of psychotropics.
But I think with these racers that are going above 200 miles an hour, 300, 400, with them kind of embracing the fun aspect, I think what's important to them is the safety. And I think throughout the years, right, they've evolved with the safety measures that they had to take when they get on, on the tracks and on the Salt Lake.
Well, just think about Seth Hammond.
Yeah.
He's building this vehicle with the intention of going over 300 miles an hour. And he's entrusting his expertise with his wife and his 2 kids. Mm-hmm. That's a huge responsibility.
Absolutely.
Trust, yeah.
Because anything can go wrong.
Exactly.
And you want these to be lightweight. You don't want them to be really heavy, but you want them to be able to withstand a crash at a certain mile per hour if that happens.
And
well,
it has
for
happened,
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they fiberglass or what are they made out of?
No, they're aluminum.
They're aluminum, okay.
Yeah.
One of the other things we're going to talk about, and you touched on it right off the bat, was the Santa Barbara races.
Correct.
So the Santa Barbara races are really important to what we're going to talk about tonight because that really not just put this region on the map in terms of the racing, But the people who competed there, we always hear about James Dean, the actor. I mean, he competed right up until he was killed in the Porsche crash.
Correct.
And then you had King of Cool, Steve McQueen raced out there.
Yep.
I think Paul
Yep.
Newman raced out there. So I mean, you could go on and on and on and on. And then you touched on it. Some of the biggest racers who ended up winning it at a very high level also competed here.
That's correct, yes. And then we're going to have both Dan Hogan, who raced there,
Yeah.
and also Roy Miller. So those guys actually, they were there. They saw it. They saw the other racers, and they could give you hours of comments about the racing itself. Unfortunately, we're not going to give them hours.
We're going to have to condense it into
Yeah.
a little bit of time.
Were these straightaway racetracks underutilized tarmacs, or were these circular racetracks or oval shaped?
Well, they had to carve something out of the tarmac.
Okay.
So, and safety was not their primary goal because, if a car got out of control or rolled, which they did, all you had was a hay bale sitting there to protect the audience. And the audience was just maybe a few yards away from the track. So it was a scary business, but, the audience, in a way, they didn't care. They were so excited they had to see it.
Yeah, and the fact that it was at an airport also had a tie to World War II because a lot of these guys, former military, knew about these landing strips. It was the perfect straight shot for these guys to run a quarter mile or whatever they were going to run.
And, to add to that, one of those strips on the airport was the first sanctioned NHRA drag strip
And you can still see it.
in the United
right?
States. It's there.
It's still, you can still see it. Between the weeds, you can still see it. I think the weeds are there, and then they added one of those cattle crossings at the very end, so that's the finish line. That's what Tony Baker was saying. He goes, that's how you know you're finished. You go over the cow barrier or whatever they call it.
Yeah, well,
Some of the buildings are still out there.
The hangars are still out there. There's a fight to keep those, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
and we are.
Yeah,
We're
awesome.
keeping those. Yeah.
Yeah, exciting night. I'm just super excited about this. What are you looking forward to most?
This is going to be a home run. I'm going to be all ears. And you don't know what to anticipate from each one of these guys that are going to talk. Some are going to be long-winded, some short, and I'm glad it's done kind of podcast-like because it'll relax them.
Yeah.
It'll bring out stuff that maybe they hadn't thought about, but it would really add to what we're doing. So I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I wanted to see this cross-talk. Yeah. I just wanted, almost like as if they're all sitting at a table drinking beer and we're eavesdropping on their conversation. That's what I'm hoping
That's
to
right.
see. That's what I want to see.
And so is every panelist here, do they know of each other already throughout the many years, or it's going to be their first time to meet
No, I
some
think
people?
they know.
They all know each other.
Oh, that's cool.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
And are they all local still? Are they driving in, flying in from other places?
Well, the only one that, let's say, is semi-local would be Tony Baker.
Okay.
And a little bit Jim Harris. So they're kind of Ventura South.
And Chip is kind of down south
Chip.
right now. Okay, Chip Foose.
Chip is trying to find a place up here.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll count that as local then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was born and raised
He
here.
was, yeah.
I was a neighbor of his
Yeah.
growing up.
Now, and he's going to represent his dad,
He
Sam
is.
Foose. So
Yes.
he'll be up here talking about what he remembers from his youth
Yes.
and what his father was doing then.
Well, there's a whole big story right there with Chip, and it spills over to Clene Sternberger and Alon. And Alon started his Clene car here at the airport,
Yeah.
which was a huge deal when it came out. And then a little later, he joined forces with Mark Sternberger, and they had Clene Sternberger Design. It was over on Ward Drive, where you know where that is.
I'm sure a relative of some sort. Yeah.
And so they had a warehouse that was maybe this size, okay, maybe a little bigger. And guess who the shop boy was? Chip
Chip
Foose.
Yeah.
And he was a kid going to just graduating from high school.
Yeah.
So Chip gave his portfolio, he'd done some artwork, to Mark, and Mark was an instructor over at Art Center Pasadena. So Chip didn't have the grades to get into Art Center, but the link there with Sternberger, and then he got financing from Alon, that got him into Art Center. And that really kicked off a career.
Well, and they also saw a talent in what he in a lot of his drawings.
Oh,
and that.
yes.
So they saw that he had a built-in talent.
He did, yeah.
That's awesome.
Is this a
exciting.
love, a passion that's continuing into the younger generations, or do you see this really dying out and not being fueled, no pun intended?
Well, if I can address that, you know, I'm president of AACA, okay, and that's the Antique Automobile Club of America, Santa Barbara, but my goal is always to get the youth involved in this hobby. So a lot of things are competing against that. You know, we've got electric cars, getting away from oil and gas and that kind of stuff. So, but we're trying, and then I work with Kevin Haberly, and we're trying to get his program started where we can bring back to the youth mechanical skills like we used to have in high school, you know,
Shop class.
auto shop and woodworking, and gals had home ec, et cetera. Those are gone. And so there was a survey that was taken, which I thought was kind of funny. And what is the percentage of people out there, male and female, that knew how to change a tire? Now, and
It has
that's,
to be single digits.
it was under 10%.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, does that tell you something?
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of people stranded on the side of the freeway is what that tells me.
Yeah.
Sitting there like, what the heck? I called AAA, right? No, no,
All AAA, that's it.
And wait for 3 hours sometimes. Sometimes.
that's it. Oh yeah, I'm super excited about it. Yeah, I'm waiting for some surprises. That's really what I want to. Somebody's going to say something. We're just going to go, whoa! Some
Well-
great story. I just know it.
And,
Yeah.
and again,
And it'll happen.
again, this is a preview, so I kind of want to give a little something, if you're willing to. Is there some gem that you know about one of these incredible racers that you can share, just kind of a tease for our podcast audience right now?
Well, I could dive into that, but I think one of the most interesting stories out there, well, a couple of them, would be the one about Seth and his crash at Bonneville doing 323.
Oh my gosh.
And you would think that would halt him from continuing, but he went right back to work. He figured out the reason for the crash. He wanted to perfect it. He did, and he went right back.
Can they eject? Is that something that's possible?
You don't eject.
And you major cages inside?
Well, yeah, you've got a cage inside.
Or
yeah.
2 or 3?
You do. Yeah.
So if he crashed at 323, does that mean he made it to 323?
Well,
Or is there a-
at that point in time, he hadn't crossed the timing spot where it makes it official.
Ah, okay. That I knew there had to be some kind of technicality
Yeah.
there if he didn't. So if you were saying the top speed he hit was at 316 or something like that,
Right, that was
but he crashed at 323.
sanctioned.
Okay.
okay.
All right.
So anyway, there's lots of stories. I mean, you're going to hear stories from Ed Langlow because his dad was a really early motorcycle racer, and there were lots of tracks in and around Santa Barbara just for motorcycle racing. In fact, he told me about one, which was the most popular, and it went up 154.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, talk about dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And was there one up Gibraltar Road also?
That I don't know. We'll find out.
Just for anybody who doesn't know this area, those are two pretty dangerous roads.
They are.
Yeah.
And steep.
A lot of crashes on them, and yeah. So to be zipping up that thing on a motorcycle it can't be the safest thing.
Wow.
Yes, your parents were upset about that. What have you been up to today? Riding a motorcycle up 154. Yeah. Anything to add?
Well, I thought
You've been pretty quiet
I
over
thought my Aloha shirt was cool, but
It
I don't
is.
think it's as cool as your jacket that you're wearing. Is there any significance to that
Well,
jacket that you're
you
wearing?
know, just in honor of Andy Granatelli, he gave me this jacket.
Oh, wow.
It's massively too big. It was his, but you know what? I'll wear it anyway.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I thought this would be the perfect venue to have Andy with us.
Oh, beautiful.
He was a great friend.
Did you come this close just thinking about putting on the full body STP?
No,
No?
I don't have that.
All right. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it because it's hilarious to see Andy trackside in his full-blown, full-body STP outfit.
Yep.
Is that over at the museum right now? Or does the family still have that? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know
That's a good
how to
question.
answer
I've always
that.
wondered about that, but that's one of his signature
When
things.
when I was working closely with his son, Vince, who passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. Anyway, he had a hangar over in Scottsdale, and I used to go over there, and we'd have dinner, and we'd talk. And anyway, he knew that I was tied to the Murphy Auto Museum. So he was very unhappy that Andy was occupying with all his trophies and other goodies half of the hangar. And this is a massive hangar.
That much stuff, huh?
Vince had his jet in there, and also Andy had a few of his cars in there. So we're out to dinner one time, and he says, "Dana, what am I going to do with all this?" He used a expletive. And I said, "You know what? Why don't you donate it to the Murphy Auto Museum?"
Great.
Which he said, "You know what? I'll do that if you pay the freight." I said, "You got a deal."
Wow.
So we had a 18-wheeler come one day with all this stuff. And guess who did all the inventory of it was Tony Baker.
Oh, okay. You'd be the
So
perfect guy to do that.
I called Tony and I said, "You're a historian. I need your help. Let's do the inventory of Andy's stuff."
Oh, that is awesome.
And he just ate it up.
Sure.
One of the things that he had, which I'd love to see if I had the time, he had 500 VHS tapes of different races, places he'd been to, honors he had been giving. And I said, "Tony, have you gone through that library?" He says, "I'd have to live 2 more lifetimes to do it." But
And finding a VHS player. That'd be the hardest part.
we've got that stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I know it's a big room. I mean, it's packed into a big room at the Murphy.
Yeah.
So, well, it is a little off topic. I know, we're probably not going to be talking too much about Andy Granatelli, but it's nice to see his jacket here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, speaking about Tony Baker,
Oh, the sign, yeah.
a huge thank you to Tony for supplying the photos that we utilized in the flyer, the main flyer from the Prospect Archives. And actually, as we were talking about preserving the stories, everybody had a kind of collective idea of like having all the panelists sign this poster throughout the show, or after the show, or the beginning of the show.
I think we're going to do it as they come in, right?
Yeah.
As they come in and sit down, we're going to have them sign it. And
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So I think that's an awesome thing. And so even with the design, I wanted to kind of capture the kind of nostalgic feel, but the old time. That's why the whole black and white tonal design kind of fit the whole vibe of the Tonight Show.
No, that's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Get everybody to sign that,
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
and then figure out what to do with it.
Too bad the doors aren't wider. They could all drive in. That'd be awesome.
Well, one question I have for Beth and CJ is, where did West of Tulsa come from?
Oh, since that's your grandfather, I'll let you handle that one.
Grandfather
Got it.
Came over here,
Okay.
yep, from Oklahoma. And his whole life since then was west of Tulsa. He died almost at the age of 105. He lived a very, very long life.
And he was a hot rodder.
He was a hot rod, although he did not want the old Ford Remember, there was a
That's
little
right.
stink in the family. I
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
get
yeah.
into it in case relatives see this. But he did not want it to be given to somebody because he was afraid they were going to chop it up and hot rod it.
And it's a 1940 Ford Opera Coupe. And I guess the reason why he felt that way, he had nothing against hot rodding. But that car, since so many 40 Ford Opera Coupes have been hot rodded, and this is pristine original condition,
He was a purist.
he wanted that car to stay original.
And you still have it.
We still have it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
We have it. We don't own it anymore.
We
but
sold it, but we still have
We're
it in our
holding it for
possession.
somebody.
We have
And he's
one
going to
more-
be here tonight, too.
That's right. Yeah.
Hot rodder.
Great.
Extended family.
Talking about history. Here's some more history.
Air history.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, this will be. I'm really excited to see this tonight. The history that will be made in this room tonight.
And if there was somebody who really would have enjoyed this tonight, it'd be
yeah,
your grandfather,
it'd be my grandfather
Richard
for
Keller.
sure.
He would have loved it.
Yep.
Because there's going to be a lot of military, and be a lot of hot rodding, a lot of cool cars, racing. He loved all that stuff.
Yeah, good man.
Yeah.
Really good man.
Yep.
And he liked Bonneville, too. All right. So this is a preview of what's to come. We're going to have some form of whatever we're going to shoot tonight, maybe 2.5 hours. We're going to jazz it up somehow. We're going to put it out on our social medias and YouTube channel so everybody can see it. Tonight's event, we don't, honestly, you don't know what to expect. We think we're going to end up with a packed house, right? We think so. We haven't
think
advertised
so.
it.
You know, we really haven't advertised. It's been more word of mouth.
mouth.
I've passed out a lot of your wonderful flyers like this. And I've got to say, the production by West of Tulsa, all you guys, has been superb.
Yeah, you guys have been amazing. A round of
Really,
applause for
really
everybody.
good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, see how they're over there smiling. Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
No, they have done a great job. This is a 2-day setup.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work, a lot of cable, a lot of gaffer tape, right, guys?
A lot of patience.
But I have to say the location is Barnum beautiful and amazing. I mean, just driving up here with Caroline, I was just like, where are we at? I've never been here. And I think you picked the perfect place to host this beautiful event tonight.
Yeah, if you know this area at all, the old Santa Barbara Mission is literally right behind us, right down the street. It's a beautiful part of Santa Barbara.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, I was hoping, when you're doing the planning for anything, what you really want to do is get the right venue for the right program,
Right.
the right people, and it just turned out beautiful.
It did.
Stunning.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else anybody want to add?
No, I'm excited for it
Just
to
excited
start.
for tonight.
Yeah.
Clock is ticking.
Are they banging on the door ready to get in? I
think so.
Is that what I hear?
Well, I've got to go park some cars.
That's right. Yeah. And you got to make sure that they park next to you without hitting your car.
Exactly. Yep.
Chitty Bang Bang. We'll have to post on this what it looks like. Everybody just calls it Chitty Bang Bang, but it's really a what?
It's really a 1926 locomobile where the previous owner, he bought it as a wreck, and it had been. Well, the story real quick. The story of the car, 1926, it was bought by a couple in L.A. They moved up here in 29. They found out that Locomobile went out of business in 29. At that time, the Santa Barbara Junior High was being built. It wasn't completed until 31. So the couple said, we're going to donate this car to the Santa Barbara Junior High. They did. And the auto shop manager said, we're going to take the body off. We'll just have the frame, the engine, and the transmission. And we're going to teach the kids how to drive stick shift on this
great.
car. Okay, so that's where it sat for 15, 16 years. Now, you're going to hear a story tonight, which is going to be very interesting. One of these panelists learned at Santa Barbara Junior High how to drive on that car.
That's so cool. Awesome. Wow. So many people don't know how to drive stick these days, We
True.
should bring Chitty
Well,
Bang
it's
back out.
funny. You go to, let's say you go to the Miramar
Oh, yes.
with a stick shift car, and the attendant looks at you like, all right, now what do I do? So, it's interesting.
Didn't you just post recently on socials about a valet where it said no manual transmissions or something?
Oh,
Who posted?
I think it was Dan.
Is it Dan? Okay, I knew somebody on the
meme,
team posted.
the meme,
Dan Rocket posted, and then you shared it. I think. That's funny because
That was
can you
hilarious.
imagine pulling up to valet and being told they can't park your car because it's
That is hilarious.
stick shift?
It's a thing.
It's happening.
It's a thing these days.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
crazy. All right, that's a whole different show. By the way, last time you brought up a topic like this, you went viral. Do you know that?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah.
All right. Dana's the only one on our team who's actually gone viral at this point.
Yay, Dan.
You went seriously viral. 180,000 views, something like that.
Whoa.
Wow. All right. Before Dana gets us in any more trouble, we're going to wrap this thing up. But we appreciate it. Keep an eye out for this because tonight's event is really going to be a lot of fun and very informative if you're a racing fan or if you just like cars driving fast. Some of the guys on the stage are going to blow your mind, literally, right?
Well, what's interesting about this is I've heard from a lot of wives of their racing partners, and normally they don't have anything to do with cars. But all these wives want to come tonight because they want to hear these stories from all these other people that they didn't know about. So we're going to have a lot of females here,
Good.
which is great.
Yep.
Beth is thinking blackmail material. Is that,
Maybe a little bit of that. Just saying.
all right. Well, we'll wrap it up. Thanks for listening and watching, and we will see you west of Tulsa.